Hi, my name is Alicia. So today I will talk about my chosen topic is cultural appropriation in celebrity culture. Cultural appropriation often occurs in the context of unequal power dynamics, especially when a dominant culture, usually Western or one with more resources and influence, borrows elements from marginalized cultures such as African, Native American, or Asian cultures. This borrowing often ignores the oppression and exploitation these cultures have historically faced. For example, box braids are the hairstyle with a strong historical and cultural origins in the black community. It was worn as a mark of resistance against racial prejudice and as a fashion statement, especially in the popular culture. Non-black people may adopt these haircuts without realizing the historical and resistant context behind them. The black community may believe that this is a more commercialization and exploitation of their culture and respecting about it. The the traditional Native American attire and symbols often get used as fashion elements without any cultural understanding. These symbols have profound spiritual and historical significance in Native American culture when used feel that their culture is being commodified and devalued. So talk about the borrowing without understanding and respect about others people culture. When cultural elements are simply used as the decoration or for commercial purposes without any understanding and respect for their background, this behavior is easily seen as the cultural appropriation. For example, commercialization and commodification. So when a cultural element is used to enhance the commercial appeal for a product or work without any recognition and respect for that culture, it is often viewed as appropriation. So for instance, some fashion brands use Native American totems and symbols in their designs solely to attract attention without any explanation or respect for the significance behind this symbol. So here is an example. Horse-face skirt, also known as horse-face pleated skirt. It is a traditional Chinese garment with a long history. It originated in the Song dynasty and became widely popular during the Ming and Qing dynasties. It is like distinctive feature is the pleated panels at the front and back with a flat piece of fabric in the middle, resembling a horse face. Hence the name lah. So in 2021, Dior launched a new skirt that bore a striking resemblance to the Horseface skirt, particularly in its pleated design at the front and back. In its promotion and the product description, Dior referred to this skirt as a new skirt without mentioning it that its design was inspired by the Chinese Horseface skirt. So, actually, many Chinese netizens pointed out the similarities between Dior's design and the Horseface skirt on the social media, accusing Dior of failing to respect and acknowledge the Chinese cultural background of the design lah. So the accusation quickly spread online, becoming a hot topic of the discussion, with many people accusing Dior of cultural appropriation. So both international and Chinese media reported on the incident, exploring the responsibility and sensitivities of luxury brand when incorporating elements from others' culture to their design. So the media also interviewed fashion experts and historians to discuss about the cultural significance of the horseface skirt. But Dior's response is during under the public pressure, Dior issued a statement expressing respect for different cultural traditions, stating that their design inspiration come from a fusion of various cultural elements and that they did not intentionally overlook any culture's history and contributions. So the incident also sparked discussion on how commercial brands should balance their commercial interests with cultural protection when using traditional cultural elements. Some suggested that brands should clearly state the origins of any cultural elements that they use, give the appropriation acknowledgement, and possibly collaborate with or share profits with the cultural communities involved. But I think that the Dior Horseface skirt incident highlights the complexity and sensitivity of cross-cultural exchanges in the globalized world. Luxury brands, while innovating in their design, should pay more attention to the cultural sensitivity, respect, and acknowledgement of different cultures to avoid similar controversies. Lah. This is not only a matter to respect for the cultural owners, but also a demonstration for the brand's responsible and sustainable. And actually, something happened after that. Lily Reba replaced Angela Baby as their new brand ambassador for Chinese. Less than 6 months later, after Angela Baby proactively terminated her contract with Dior following the horse face skirt incident, this move by Diliraba has been perceived as a highly offensive. Most Chinese netizens are outraged by Dior's action, viewing the appropriation of the another country culture without acknowledging or apologizing for it, and only withdrawing the product from the Chinese market as deeply infuriating. Against this backdrop, the Reba endorsement might lead to some discontent, lah, with critics arguing that she didn't consider the sensitivity of the issue. They believe that the cultural appropriation is a very serious issue, and this one of the challenges the Reba faces as the new brand ambassador. As an brand ambassador, the Reba image closely linked to Dior's brand. If the brand encounters any negative news, the ambassador might also be affected. Overall, Dilruba signing with Dior as a global ambassador has brought more attention and discussion. Lah. Although the overall feedback is generally positive, it has innovatively brought controversy and negative comments. The specific impact of this evaluation will need further. So we'll talk about the K-pop music video that wasn't understanding and respect other culture. This MV was released by IVE. It was features various traditional Korean cultures elements such as jewelry tops, noguri pendants, smoking pipes, fans, and landscape inspired by Korean art. Despite these Korean influences, many Chinese viewers noted that similarities to the Chinese artistic styles, including the ink-wash illustrations and traditional motifs, leading to the accusation of cultural thief. The controversy gained significant traction of Chinese social media platforms like Weibo, Douyin, where users criticized both the group and the artist responsible for the MV artwork, Park Ji-hoon. They argued that the elements such as the use of fans and certain decorative knots was distinctly Chinese, but not Korean. The incident highlights the ongoing sensitivities around cultural representation and appropriation in the global entertainment industry, particularly between countries with rich interview history like China and Korea. Then here is some example about it. And this is their response on Douyin lah. So now let me give you some example about the movie that wasn't understanding and respect other culture. Uh, The Last Airbender, the film adaptation of animated series Avatar The Last Airbender, heavily influenced by the East and South Asian cultures, predominantly cast by white actors, sparking controversy over the lack of racial and cultural representation. So the next is Solo, a Star Wars story. The portrayal of Lando race in the film was seen as oversimplified and misunderstood aspects of African and Caribbean cultures, failing to appropriately respect and represent these cultures. And next is Doctor Strange. In the comics, the Ancient One was originally a Tibetan male character, but in the movie it was portrayed by a white actress, Tilda Swinton. This change was criticized for favoring white actors and ignoring the original Tibetan culture background, they think. So the last example is Bruce Almighty. Despite being a light-hearted comedy, the depiction of God's image and handling of related religious elements in the film sparked dissatisfaction among the religious group who viewed it as disrespectful and lacking in reverence for their religious culture. So, talk about the manner and the context of cultural borrowing. Cultural fusion and borrowing are not inherently wrong, but the key lies in how they are done. If cultural element is appropriately borrowed, it usually involves a deep understanding and respect for the original culture, and the borrowing method is acknowledged and welcomed by the original culture. So, for example, if the borrower takes the time to learn and understand the history, background, and significance of the borrowed culture and expresses respect and appreciation for the original culture in the process, the behavior can be seen as cultural fusion. And during the borrowing process, if the borrower collaborates with the original culture groups that gains their permission and support, such as cultural fusion is usually seen as a sign of respect and appreciation. So, for example, some fashion brands borrow elements from indigenous cultures in their design and collaborate with artists from those cultures to create and promote this work. This approach is considered respectful cultural borrowing lah. So, let me give some example. This is a K-pop group. It's called 17. 17 success in entering Chinese market with their song can be attributed significantly to their respect and integration of Chinese culture. Here is some detailed explanation about the music elements. They are using Chinese traditional instruments. 17 incorporated the sounds of traditional Chinese instruments such as guzheng and erhu into their song. This is not only enhanced the authentic flavor of the music, but also demonstrated the understanding and respect for the Chinese musical culture. And about the visual elements, in their music video and stage performance, 17 members wore costumes that feature Chinese traditional elements. These outfits included the design with the dragon and phonics, embroidery, Chinese style buttons showcasing their appreciation for Chinese clothing culture, and some visual art, the music video backgrounds, and the culture statements about the public statement and tributes. Upon the releasing song, 17 made a public statement expressing their respect for Chinese culture. They announced that the song and its music video were tributes to Chinese culture, hoping to build the cultural bridge through their music. Their scenery and attitude were well received by the Chinese audience lah. And the language adaptation to the Chinese lyrics to better connect with the Chinese listeners. 17 used the Chinese lyric in their song. This effort is not only brought them closer to the Chinese fan but also show their respect and effort in learning using the language lah. And also the fan interaction for the cultural activities during the fan meetings and events in China. 17 often included elements of Chinese culture. For instance, they used simple Chinese greetings and participated in traditional Chinese game. These Chinese activities further strengthened their emotional bond with their Chinese fan. And the last, I'll talk about the impact of marginalized groups. Cultural appropriation often negatively impacts marginalized groups, deepening their historical and social wounds. For example, exploiting social inequality when the elements of a culture were borrowed and commercialized by the dominant culture, but the original culture groups does not benefit from it. This can exert social inequality. So, by understanding the background and the impact of cultural appropriation, we can better understand that why some actions seen as cultural appropriation rather than cultural fusion or borrowing. To avoid cultural appropriation, it is crucial to respect and understand the background of the borrowed culture and to demonstrate respect and acknowledgement for the original culture during the borrowing process. Last is my conclusion. It is essential to recognize the distinction between the cultural appropriation and cultural borrowing or integration in today's interconnected globe. Cultural appropriation frequently takes the place under the backdrop of historical oppression and power disparities, which leads to the exploitation and commercialization of minority cultures. Cooperation, respect, and the true grasp of the original culture group are necessary for respectful cultural exchange. We may encourage the more courteous and meaningful cross-cultural encounters and make sure that all cultures are duly recognized and respected by understanding the context and effects of cultural appropriation. And here's the end. Here's my references. And thank you.